Today we'll explore authentic Tokyo neighborhoods rarely visited by tourists. In this case, just a bit for a reason we'll explain later. These would be the suburban neighborhoods where Japanese people usually spend their weekends. And he tells us why. Not everyone will be in Shibuya, Shinjuku, Ueno, Akihabara, or the typical neighborhoods featured on most tourist tours. So it doesn't matter because this isn't a video focused on tourism. We're just going to explore the authentic neighborhoods of Tokyo, Dad. Now we're in the Ogikubo neighborhood, which for example is not touristy at all. It's a completely residential area, but it has its own charm. Like this kind of retro barbershop, but it looks really, really retro. There are a couple of things in this neighborhood that are nice. I think we're going to take the opportunity to eat something here because at least wherever we go, we'll probably find a spot. Supermarket selling its deals. It's very local. But kebab, forget it. You can never go without a kebab. There are a lot of ramen places here in this neighborhood. There's a cafe called Minion here that's interesting because it connects to classical music. This is like a cafe where you only come to listen to music, and what's more, you shouldn't speak loudly. I mean, people come here to have a coffee and enjoy the music. That's why we'll just go in, have some coffee, and leave. The coffee is very nice. The lady who serves in a kimono, I love her because it's a classic style with classical music, but without abandoning Japanese tradition. With a kimono, very nice. A little coffee and a cheese toast. Very good. Total silence speakers with old wooden speakers. And obviously all the music is on vinyl, that's why they have a bunch of vinyl records there. A piano, because sometimes at night they have small classical concerts, that too. Very nice, I like the place, very peaceful. And here there's a park, Otaguro Park. This park, for example, belonged to a classical music composer from the early 20th century. The man was very rich, and all of this was his garden. Before he died, Mr. Otaguro donated his yard to the city, which then turned it into a park. A more Japanese-style garden, right? Before it was just a simple garden without much, but now it's a beautiful park I love. Because here, for example, you see a lot of old people since the view is nice. There are many old people who just sit and draw landscapes. By the way, I think there's a tea house here. There's also the place where his studio used to be. You have to take off your shoes and put on some slippers, but the entrance is completely free. Of course, this was his studio. His piano looks pretty old. A very well-off person, huh? Now we're at the Animation Museum of the Polytechnic University of Animation, which, well, is a free museum. It's super small, very nice, and it has little things about the history of animation. They have a mini theater and a cinema to watch short films for a limited time. It has a library, and there are a lot of signatures from manga and anime authors. This is an area where you can do your own dubbing. I mean, you can put your voice to a piece of animation so you can be a voice actor. There are a couple of things where you press a button and it shows you how animation works. Let's see, what you do here is take papers that are kind of transparent. You draw one frame, then another frame, and that's how you end up creating a small animation. As stated, you photograph each page and your animation appears. Look how cool, the girl from before made an animation of a little frog. Really nice. Look, I like this. There are a lot of brochures that might catch your attention about events, exhibitions, animation festivals. In nearby Kichijoji, there's also something from Capcom Hiroshima, really nice. These things are good sometimes to get some information about what you can do. There's a temple in front of the museum, but I don't know how to visit it since the entrance is large and it feels a bit tense. But anyway, that's the thing. In Japan, you don't necessarily have to always go to the famous temples. Sometimes you find really small neighborhood temples that are pretty nice, and sometimes, like this one, they're not that small, but they're nice. It's so peaceful here, isn't it? Everything feels so local. In the sense that the mikoshis, which are these portable shrines used for festivals, are usually found in important, large, or famous temples. They're usually kept in a place that's impressive, right? Like they're stored away. Here it's more like a warehouse, and I like that. Another thing is that Shintoism is a polytheistic religion with many gods of nature and things like that. Inside a temple, you can always see one temple next to another temple, a small altar, right? Or a mini shrine. They have entrances and torii gates everywhere. As I said, a torii means it's a Shinto shrine, right? And Shintoism is the native religion of Japan. It's the religion with which the country was born. Therefore, this is a type of temple that you only see in Japan, since Buddhists, you can see Buddhist temples in other countries. But Buddhism has been in Japan so long that it has its own identity now, right? Which is different from the temples you might find in other Asian countries. Just the main sanctuary and nothing else. I love how they use all that space. Look here, for example, they have the komainu, which are the guardian dogs that are usually used in Shinto shrines. A male and female are present. The female is with the cub, while the male, who likes soccer, is with a ball. Now we are in Nakano, which is just 5 minutes from Shinjuku. Here it's mostly known for one thing, which we'll see later. First of all, I'm hungry and I want to look for something around here. And this is a kind of labyrinthine area full of little restaurants, bars, and all that kind of stuff. So let's see what we can find around here to eat. But I love this neighborhood because it's all super labyrinthine. And one thing about this neighborhood is that it has stayed pretty old-fashioned, so to speak. Because this was a neighborhood that, for example, during World War II, even though all of Tokyo was bombed, this neighborhood specifically didn't suffer as many bombings. Therefore, even though not all the buildings are from before the war, quite a few of them survived. And that's why it has that little bit of authenticity, because it looks like slightly old neighborhoods, despite all the commercial activity they have. So we went into an izakaya, one of those where you do tachinomi, which basically means eating or drinking while standing. We have a bit of nihonshu because we ordered all very Japanese food, and Japanese food goes really well with nihonshu, which is sake. It would be rice wine. How delicious. I ordered Kito, a brand I know and like. For example, otoshi refers to a mandatory dish similar to a table service. They give you fish in there like water with a little bit of broth just to help you eat the fish. Cook it quickly, it doesn't need to be well done. There's ponzu, which is kind of like a vinegary sauce that goes well with this. This is one of the best otoshi I've received, since I usually wouldn't order it. It's kind of lame, so to speak. This is gyumutsu, which is like a small stew that has a bit of beef or pork, some vegetables, things like that. A bit of tofu. This is gobo, which is a root, daikon, which is a type of radish, carrot, a bit of broth. Well, this looks like tripe or something like that. These little stews are really tasty, they're really good. Next, this, which would be tuna, is one of my favorite parts because it's a really tender part. This isn't machine ground or anything similar. These are very tender tuna parts that must be served this way because they can't hold a solid shape. Just some nori and wasabi, that's all. And all of this always goes really well with nihonshu. Now for the controversial part, which I don't mind as much after years in Japan. And honestly, what people say doesn't matter to me that much anymore. But this is whale sashimi. I've had whale several times and it's not a favorite of mine. I'm ordering it mainly for the video to show you. Whale meat is usually tougher, though it depends on the place. The Japanese older people, for example, eat it out of nostalgia because in post-war Japan, whale meat was served in school lunches. Because, well, it was a major source of food during times of poverty. Everything was delicious. These are the kinds of truly authentic experiences you can have in this place. Look, the tuna skewers here. Wow, it looks great. Look how thick it is. Oh, it's a little red inside, so it's just seared. Let's see how this is. A bit of shoyu, soy sauce, and here we go. It's really, really good. This is a luxury, a real treat. Well, this is egir, which is basically toasted stingray. And this is a very typical appetizer in izakayas, in taverns, and it goes really well with nihonshu, obviously. Wait, I almost forgot one of my favorites, oysters. I like to eat them like this. pour some Nihonshu sake, just a little splash, and this combination is amazing. The combination is the best. It's incredible, it's God, well, and you can see I'm really red. Well, that's something very typical for many people of Japanese descent. I mean, it's my biggest proof that I'm Japanese. But with just a little alcohol, we already turn this red. That a high percentage of Japanese people say it's a kind of enzyme deficiency that Japanese people lack. I don't know, I have no idea what an enzyme deficiency is. That's the explanation. The thing is, I mean, I'm not drunk, I'm fine, but of course it looks like I'm super drunk because I'm all red. What did I drink? I had Nihonshu and a beer. I think about half an hour after I stop drinking, it'll wear off. There are some people, for example, who get red and then their body starts to process it and they go back to normal. But that's when you start acting, with a drunk attitude. Let's see, and something I really like about this neighborhood is that there are those alleys that are kind of old. The truth is, when you leave the station, the first thing you come across is this covered pedestrian street, which is super fancy, posh, snobby, pretty. I mean, it's much more superficial. I don't know if that's the right word, but yeah, it's a nice shopping alley, right? And this place is why a lot of tourists come, because since the 80s or 90s, this place has been like an old Akihabara, right? It's a pretty old shopping center, but it's completely packed with second-hand stores, anime, manga, and geek stuff. And of course here, yes, in this place, there are a lot of tourists, but that's precisely because it's a very well-known spot. Because it's the main headquarters where the Mandarake store was born, which is a store that's very specialized in everything related to manga and anime. For example, they sell animation sets, lots of vintage anime stuff. On the ground floor, though, there isn't as much geek stuff. But if you go up one floor, there are 2.5 floors. I say 2.5 because the third floor is pretty empty, but it's all vintage anime. Now this is really interesting because the escalator, instead of taking you up one floor, takes you up 2, so it skips the second floor. Well, let's see. For example, this is the Mandarake manga store, and I love it. You see, you're in the hallway and the manga are right here. Wow, here you can just grab them and take them inside so they can charge you, but obviously no one here is going to be stealing manga. Besides, they're cheap. These paintings are really nice, man, but they must be prints. Well, let's see, they're $70. Yeah, they have to be prints. That's great. Something that characterizes the Mandarake store is that it sells a lot of vintage anime and manga, but of course, obviously, Mandarake inside Nakano Broadway has about 6 to 8 stores while others don't. The place is already known as the Mandarake of Nakano, right? But it's just a group of unrelated stores. But in Nakano Broadway, it's mainly anime and manga stores, and watches too, high-end watches, expensive watches, Rolex, Omega, all those kinds of watches, right? I never understood why that mix in this store. I like it because they always change themes. Here, for example, I bought a Junji Ito shirt, but well, the theme keeps changing, so I don't know if they'll have it. They still carry Junji Ito items, but not the shirt I own. I love this plate, but I'm not sure it's practical. I prefer items that are functional and usable as real plates. The Goju Inkyo is a temple visiting notebook stamped and signed at each temple. I love these, especially the statue and little figure. I really like Junji Ito's merchandise and art. I'm a big fan, though not so much of the stories. The stories are always bad in the sense that the ending of the story is bad, but I like the art so much. Look, in Sofubi stores, what's nice about this place compared to Akihabara is that it has 3 floors and stores are right next to each other. Look at the Rolexes. Let's see. The most expensive one, 15 million yen. That's about $100,000. That's what this Rolex costs, $100,000. Hey, but they're original. But what are you asking, sir? No, it's crazy. They're that kind. No matter how much money I have, I'd never wear one of those watches. But the combination in this building is truly bizarre. For example, let's see. One reason why it's full of tourists is because Japanese people nowadays don't go to Akihabara or here anymore unless it's just to stroll around. It has these kind of adult gachapon machines, which I won't show much because this is very censorable. I think I'll keep collecting these. Besides, the old man is sometimes cool and lets me choose the gachapon machines. I love this retro beauty salon. It's a shop, bar, and cafe, but everything centers around music. Enka, which is a style of Japanese music, is, let's say, like Japanese tango. It's kind of semi-modern 20th century music, but music for older people. But it's a cafe dedicated to that theme in trading card shops, right? But honestly, since I don't collect things anymore and all that, I feel a bit nostalgic when I walk by this place. When I first came to Japan, it was exciting. This month we're going to Nakano Broadway to explore and shop. That was nice, it's over, let's go somewhere else. This cafe in the middle of the gallery is beautiful, very, very nicely decorated. It has this, and it's right there, here, in the middle of the hallway. I loved it because it's full of foreigners and tourists here. And the only place where I see only Japanese people is in this retro cafe. Maybe there are Japanese visitors here for anime or something, or maybe not, I'm not sure. The cafe is famous, that's why there's also kind of a trend of people looking for retro cafes. It's not exactly the elegant style of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, but yeah, this gallery has a lot of different contrasts, but everything is especially very retro. Here is this highly sought after set. This is a collaboration between McDonald's and Evangelion, where the McDonald's piece opens up and it's like a kind of Evangelion transformer. And this one, I remembered that Iñaki Godoy, who plays Luffy in the live-action One Piece on Netflix, bought it. It's funny because he wrote to me after I brought it here since his mom followed me. Greetings to Iñaki's mom, that's why he contacted me and I brought him to hang out. Also, that guy is incredible in many ways because first, his personality is very, very true to Luffy. A very nice, cheerful, energetic guy. But above all, that day we went to eat with my wife, the three of us. And that guy speaks Japanese very well. He's 21 and said he started studying Japanese a year ago, and we spent the whole dinner speaking in Japanese. I mean, he didn't speak it perfectly, but he made himself understood with everything he said. Honestly, really, really admirable. And well, he bought that McDonald's pack, I think, for his uncle, who liked McDonald's stuff, as a gift. But I was surprised by how much and how well that guy spoke Japanese. He said he had studied Japanese because he wanted to speak Japanese with Ota Sensei, the author of One Piece. Honestly, incredible. And also, he likes Japan. And now we're in one of, I don't know if I should say it's one of my favorite neighborhoods, but it's among the ones I like the most. But without a doubt, it's one of the favorite neighborhoods of Japanese people who we could call different and of foreigners who live in Tokyo. Why do I say that? Since we're in Koenji now, I already made a special video about this neighborhood 2 years ago. More or less, because it's a very different neighborhood with a lot of musical culture. And that's true, it really hasn't changed, but it's a very bohemian neighborhood. Because what happens is that just like the west side close to Tokyo from Shinjuku to the left, so to speak, on the map, it's like it stops being part of the center, the real core of Tokyo, and it starts to feel a bit more local, right? And that's what gives it authenticity. And among the authentic things, this is a neighborhood where a lot of people who used to work in music or want to work in music move to neighborhoods like this. Because the rent is cheaper, although as it's becoming more popular, with gentrification and so on, rents are going up, so they're not as cheap anymore. But it used to be a kind of neighborhood that was at least cheap, and also it's kind of like that too. This whole route, which is mainly connected by the Cho line, which is a Japan Railways train line from Shinjuku to many universities that are outside of Shinjuku in the center of Tokyo. Many young people would stop at stations to find places to drink, and this is one such spot. An area where there have always been a lot of bars, and where bars naturally and organically concentrated, bars that were very dedicated to music. That's why there are a lot of music bars here, a lot of clubs. This place is full of clubs that are completely hidden. A couple of weeks ago, I came to see a mini concert in a space that could fit about 40 or 30 people. I was invited because a Mexican band was playing. We took advantage of the opportunity and I asked them a couple of questions. As I said, Koenji is full of clubs, music venues, and more. Today, by chance, I ended up here to see the band Johnny Nasty Roots. Guys, it's in Mexico.
First time in Japan from Mexico.
Top.
Roots Boots, first time in Mexico from about 35 years ago when I was born. But no, it's our first time here in Japan. We're here in this amazing neighborhood.
How did you end up coming to Japan to play? How does an underground Mexican band end up playing in Japan?
Well, look, we tried to apply to a festival that takes place in April. Unfortunately, there were a lot of submissions, a lot of applications to get into the festival. Unfortunately, we couldn't make it to the finals, but they offered us a tour if we were interested. We said, okay, well, let's see what it's about, and suddenly, here we are. Incredible, right? It's a big effort, but we're really happy to be here.
But they have like 10 dates, almost, I don't know.
It's eight dates here, and we're going to be... Most of the shows are in different areas here in Tokyo, but we're also going to Osaka, for example, right? So we have to take the bullet train, and well, let's see what happens.
Right, but it's follow the guys who are on Spotify, on YouTube.
Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, anywhere you can listen to music. And we don't get paid, but we're there. Instagram, X, formerly Twitter and very popular in Japan. Facebook and Johnny Nasty Boots are widely used here. Anywhere you can find us there very easily.
But this is a neighborhood, for example, that Japanese people love because it's full of izakayas. Bars to have a drink. It's that cozy, unpretentious, not fancy, not snobby vibe that gives this neighborhood an incredible atmosphere. You might ask, where should I go for a drink? There are plenty of options. All Japanese people like this atmosphere, right? And the fact is that precisely because it's an area where there are a lot of music bars or neighborhoods really dedicated to music, especially the underground scene, that's where you find typical Japanese people. People always say, I met a Japanese person who's the least Japanese ever. This neighborhood is full of them. There are a lot of Japanese people around here who speak English or who are very open to foreigners, who aren't as structured as... here you don't really see a lot of office workers. For example, you don't see many office workers around here. It's like they're already Japanese freelancers who have jobs, a lot of more informal jobs. People who maybe don't have a lot of education, or they do have education, but they're looking for different environments. Look at this. For example, today there's like a little vinyl fair. And it's nice because on weekends, like today, which is Saturday, there's a lot of this going on too. You always see some activity that's very related to music many times. The special video I recorded 2 years ago. It was a special day. It was about street music. And on that day, there were little bands playing on different street corners. Honestly, it's a really nice neighborhood that I recommend. But of course, when you get to these neighborhoods, you also think there's so many options that you wonder, where should I go? Where should I go? And for that, I have my friend Mati as an expert who helped me in that video back then. I'm going to leave his Instagram here, so if you need anything. If someone comes and wants an alternative tour of bars or nightlife and that kind of thing, you can write to him directly on Instagram and tell him that you're going on behalf of Naka. And that's it. He does tours like that at night. And here, for example, even if we go 2 blocks out of the way, there's, for example, a Sento. The Sento, well, I already made a video a couple of months ago about what a Sento is, which is a public bathhouse where you bathe, which is different from an onsen because onsens are hot springs and they usually use natural hot spring water. What do I know? They're more touristy. They usually don't allow tattoos there, but for example, Mati was just telling me, I asked him, do they allow tattoos there? And he said yes. I said no, but he insisted yes in all the sentos. Only onsen don't allow them. I realized I have 2 sentos near my house that allow tattoos. But let's see, it could be, right? That thing where we think tattoos are allowed, but they're not. But of course, the onsens are the ones tourists look for the most because they're more touristy, because sometimes they even have an outdoor area. I don't know. They usually don't allow tattoos there. I still highly recommend the place from the video I visited because it was beautiful with a sauna and an outdoor area. It was almost like an onsen. I'm not sure there's much difference between an onsen and the place we showed that allows tattoos. Now that's true because the neighborhood has a complexity that really, when you walk through these streets, they're really beautiful. There are places to eat and drink everywhere, but walking around here makes you wonder where the music bars are. Well, of course, the thing is that they're all really underground, kind of divey, and they're mostly for regulars. No, not really meant to attract new people. And obviously, since they're sometimes niche, they're kind of hidden. Like for example, here they don't, but sometimes there's a staircase here that goes up and the bar is upstairs. Or in the basement or here, you can see there's a bar upstairs. It's not necessarily musical maybe, but that's another thing. The places are kind of hidden, but in a hidden way. It's very, 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 very abundant. And another thing is that in this neighborhood, there are a lot of secondhand clothing stores. So there's the issue of secondhand clothing and the issue of vintage clothing, which makes a difference in price. This one, for example, is a bit of both. But for example, here there are pieces of clothing that cost 550 yen, which is $3.50. These are $3 pieces. I'm sure the prices will change a lot once we're inside. It's already $50 here. But this, for example, they sell a vintage Pokemon t-shirt here that's original from Nintendo, but made in Turkey for Europe. And of course, it costs a little over $50 for an old t-shirt that's already getting fuzzy. That's the thing with vintage clothing. Sometimes they're kind of rip-offs, but for example, there are also cheap clothing stores, and there are stores, for example, that have that vintage thing. We're not going to go all the way there, but there's a vintage anime clothing store with old t-shirts, but really old ones from the 90s, the 2000s anime ones. A t-shirt costs you $200 with ridiculous prices. But of course, these are clothes you can't find anymore, and that's what makes the difference with vintage. It's about when they're from and how you can't find them anymore. The fun is discovering clothes that aren't available now. It's like, so you can feel a little more unique. And so we go into a hallway that doesn't inspire much confidence. So should we go up or an old elevator? You don't see many elevators like this anymore. On top of that, it takes forever to open. It's made of two parts. It's an amabi. It's a record store, right? But really hidden, super hidden for fans, fanzines. This is extremely underground to the absolute extreme. I love it because outside the place, I mean, here there's like a library where you can borrow a book and then return it. Very cool. I mean, yeah, it's outside the doors of the place that's there. Oh, so it also has a room. The tissue box using a disassembled family. But this is for people, if you're kind of a hippie, you're really going to like this place. Yeah, there's a guitar. This right here, for example, is an activist center. Because by the way, the Koenji neighborhood is like, it's also an area with a lot of left-wing people. Because even before, it was already an area where a lot of left-leaning people, protesters, and all that kind of crowd would gather. Here, for example, you can see some bars decorated with the Palestinian flag, things like that. We ended up in a tapas bar overlooking the street and people passing by. This is a raisin liqueur with milk, which can be served with soda or with milk, and with milk it's tasty. What is this supposed to be?
Stew with chicken.
With chicken, and this is a skewer of?
Pork skewer.
Pork. You've already brought me here, and honestly, the tapas are really good.
It's like a mix of Spanish and Japanese.
Let's see, the pork. It's really tasty. The skewer too, really good, really good. It's the weirdest bar I've been to in a long time, I think. It's a tatami room with something on display. I'm not sure what, and there's sound, but it's not exactly music. Let's go downstairs instead. Downstairs, it's just a regular disc jockey bar that plays some old music. I love it because people of all ages, including young and over 50, are there. Very, 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 very interesting place, but the atmosphere is good, it's nice, and it's quite separated from the rest of Koenji. It's a couple of blocks away. Well, the little bar tour and everything was nice. I love it because it's an environment where you see people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, maybe even someone in their 60s. This neighborhood is also very diverse. You see people of all ages in the bars. They're all Japanese people seeking an atmosphere different from the typical Shibuya or Shinjuku scene, something less basic. It was good. See you next time. Greetings to you, your family, your pet, and your neighbor. Bye.